Hey, I'm excited to share with you my interview with Ivan from Icons 8, the creators of Lunacy. And as we're exploring these different design tools, I'm really happy to see that they're not all following the same exact direction. Each of them has something completely different and unique to offer. And that's really good for the sake of us as designers and also for the sake of innovation in the industry. Lunacy has some truly groundbreaking features and an approach that's really different, and I find it quite awesome. So let's dive into the conversation, and as always, you can see it both on YouTube and on my podcast. Okay, and we're live with the founder of Icons 8, which is a company that is responsible for another design tool that we're going to be closely looking at today called Lunacy. So the first question that I have right at the start here is why the name? Why Lunacy?
Pretty random. This is uh, basically explains why I'm not good at naming. Why I can say it, why lunacy, why everything else. So I mean, it started with a little project with a viewer when we hacked the sketch format, which was not open format at the time. It was just a dump from their like memory dump at the time. So we hacked it and we wanted to make a viewer for people. So it was such a crazy format. It's basically uh, C, I mean, Objective C code dump. So we were like trying to hack and reverse engineer it, and we were like, I mean, in the mood of it. So we called it Lunacy, and it's stuck with it. So a lot of it of our naming uh, grows out of internal projects where we try and then release them, and we leave internal names out of it.
Okay, so interesting. So it started as like a small app in scope just to be able to preview sketch files. And when did you decide that you want to grow it into like a full-fledged sketch competitor?
Um, it was an opportunity, a market opportunity, because at the time there was Sketch, which was 90% of UX design, and Sketch always said they are not planning to do anything for Windows, and people were always like, "Where is Sketch for Windows? Are you going to make Sketch for Windows?" And all they had was a little FAQ on Sketch website, and it said, "We are not going to do it."
Yeah, that is well. You can appreciate the sort of approach of not changing their mind even when the market was clearly pushing towards more people on Windows to have access to design tools, and Figma used that quite well. Which leads me to the next question. With the most recent Figma acquisition, well, that's going to be a two-part question by Adobe. Have you noticed a big jump in installs and new users? And also, like next to that, are you planning to push the app forward even more now, seeing that potentially people are now consciously looking at alternatives? They don't want to be stuck in the Adobe ecosystem necessarily, or at least they want to have a choice. So, are you pushing to, I don't know, add more developers to the team and kind of grow Lunacy faster?
We enjoy their popularity. So um, we definitely enjoy Figma designers starting to look around what's else behind Figma. Um, Also, we think that there is a lot more than UX design. So if you look at all the designers in the world, professional designers, non-professional designers, print designers, app designers, software developers, people who occasionally do something, change the color of some illustration, tweak some assets, who do some mock-ups, or people who compose some kind of kids. Like I remember usability testing when there was a woman from Philippines, and she removed background with a photo of their of kids uh, crying, and she put some funny background behind, and she was so happy. It was like kids crying, and there's something funny behind, and she was like, so and she's a designer as well. So the world of design is so huge, and Figma designers are probably, I don't know, maybe 2% of it. So we see our market, addressable market, much more than Figma.
That
And
is
in this sense, it didn't change much.
okay, but of course that's something that's pretty common to this market, that those UX UI designers think that they're like most of the design industry, and they were kind of thinking like, why did Adobe buy Figma and not the other way around, not thinking that Adobe is catering to like millions of designers of different kinds, and Figma or UI design is just this little narrow niche next to graphics design, print design, animations, everything that Adobe kind of allows people to do, including sound design and movie editing. So there's this huge market. So you're not aiming Lunacy primarily at UX UI designers, but more towards just creative people that want to do something using an accessible design tool that's multi-platform.
And realistically, it's hard to. I mean, you should find your niche. You should find your niche. You should make your tool for some people to do something better uh, at some point, and then you should use your user base to grow. You should use your revenue from this small group of people to improve your product. And initially, you could uh, kick the competitions that didn't take you
Right.
seriously before. It's I mean, this is the basic the basics of competition in the technology world. So I don't think it's realistic to create a Figma product right now, but I think there is a lot to improve here. So we are here. I don't know if I'm still responding your question, but I think
All right, it's going in the right direction.
we are between two kind of we are torn between two poles. From one side, there are Figma designers, and they always need the next feature to move from Figma to Lunacy. So they need something they really miss. And there is, and we have a website where people vote for features, and we create these features. And I always, it's painful for me to accept any of these features personally for me. And there is another desire, which is much more closer to what I want, is to create some revolutionary features for designers. I think there is so much to do. I think we are like mm,
Scratching
torn
the
between
surface in a way, yeah.
routine tasks. I think designers, they still move boxes and text around the screen, and it's still the same as it used to be when I started 25 years ago. And I think designers, when they die, they still have, like, in a split second, they still have boxes and text, and it's like moving. They still see the life of moving the boxes and text in a split second. And I want designers, when they die, to see some kind of creative process moving in front of their eyes. So I want to move Lunacy in that direction.
So
Mm.
more of like an AI tools that you already have that are pretty powerful, and kind of building also on top of that a little bit. So there's a little bit less of this kind of mundane part of design, which is like, okay, make a rectangle and now round the corners, and everybody that starts with that pretty much right now. Like all the tutorials, make a rectangle around the corners. So I understand the premise a little bit, even when I'm sometimes doing tutorials myself. It kind of feels weird and repetitive, like every time make a rectangle, round the corners by that much, change the background. And that kind of is taking a little bit of the creativity out of design, but at the same time, a lot of that at least the UI/UX part of this industry is actually not that creative in its own, because I really think that there aren't really many like UI innovations appearing anymore for years. Like the last one that I remember I really liked was Pull to Refresh by Twitter. That was designed, I think, like 8, 9 years ago, and since then we kind of repeat the same stuff over and over. So in that regard, I kind of understand that, for example, Lunacy has those building blocks where you can just drag kind of pre-made OS components onto the canvas, like drag a button, drag a list, and kind of just build with, as you can, I think you called it building with bricks, and in a way that's what it is. So are you trying to maybe democratize design towards non-designers, since it's building with bricks? Now let's say some marketing people with an idea for a feature can mock up an app by just drag and dropping bricks.
Do you mean Canva for UX design?
Yeah, in a way.
Um, and probably, I think that's gonna be um, it's gonna be something probably desirable for some people. Probably it could be also desirable to work with your own design system better. It's also could be more usable in a sense that before moving your elements around the screen, you should find your elements. I'll give you some examples where some existing tools could improve besides AI or pre-made design. So what we have, um, uh, huge lists of objects, and designers they look for. I mean, you can't work without lists of objects somehow. And what we did recently, a feature when you only see the objects that fit on your screen. So if you have a huge project, you don't see thousands of objects. You only see the objects that you see uh, on the screen. And if you can't locate the object you're looking for, you can zoom in a little bit, and your selection is just reducing to like maybe 10 objects, 10 layers, and that's it. So you don't have to look for them.
So more
Or that's what I call like reducing routine. Or in terms of rounding colors, all editors they have an input for the radius for reducing for the radius the input where you can type any radius you want, but normally you use the same radius. I used to use the same radius for years.
Yeah,
uh,
true. Especially if you're working with like an 8 point grid, you're kind of going with those same roundness, same distances, same everything. So kind of like when you specify some of these things initially, there is just following the rules after that, and then
yeah,
really inputting the same value into those boxes over and over again.
totally. Or when you draw um, some box around content. So existing applications, they just cover all the content with this box. So you should just like move it down a little bit so the content keeps appearing on top of that, and it doesn't make any sense. So we created a feature when you draw a rectangle, a big rectangle over content, so it automatically moves behind the content, so the content appears over it.
Right. Yeah.
Um,
So like smart features that basically do the most commonly expected thing that people would normally have to do themselves.
mhm, mhm. Or rectangles. You can draw rectangles for years, and the new rectangle is always gray. It's always the wrong color. So the editors could at least guess uh, the right color. It could be wrong, but it wouldn't be 100% wrong in 100% cases. So in the new release of Lunacy 8.8, we try to guess the color depending of the size of rectangle you're drawing. So if you're drawing a button, it would be probably blue, and if you're drawing some huge rectangle, it probably would be like a paint. Would be light gray,
Right.
based on
So
what you
you're
what you did
analyzing
before.
what people created in their design already. So you're analyzing for patterns, like big rectangles or backgrounds are usually this color, then smaller elements like buttons are this color, and then
Yeah.
you can use those tools to suggest things. And yeah, that is very smart. I kind of noticed a lot of very cool and smart ideas in Lunacy when I did the privacy policy video last year. Uh, that I noticed that there is a lot of creativity that I haven't seen in any other design tool, and kind of going against the current a little bit. That's something that I was actually excited to hear about, and it's really exciting to hear you now talk about even like the basic gray rectangle and rethinking that instead of just kind of doing what everybody's doing in that area. So drawing a rectangle always gray, sometimes with a border, just so it's kind of, I don't know, so you can see it. But yeah, it should be a little bit smarter in terms of like understanding the most common actions, most common things that people do, and adjusting to it instead of just kind of giving you the canvas to make repetitive things. Okay, but still, of course, going with innovative new features and being smart as an app is all good. But what many people want to know is, are you planning to add auto layout?
Yeah, totally. Yeah, this is in current OKR. So we're releasing it this fall.
Okay, so is there anything different with your approach to auto layout that you can talk about compared to how Figma does it? Because obviously there are different approaches to it. And in the Penpot in conversation, we found out that they are going very developer friendly. So their auto layout is going to be based on typical developer standards with CSS, flags, boxes, and everything. So are you going this route, or are you going something crazy innovative with AI into it, or something like that?
I uh,
Of course, if you can't talk about it yet, that's
yeah, totally. I just don't remember. It's uh, yeah, we used to talk a lot about it in the summer, and I was so sick of talking about it, so I it's amnesia. But what was the point was to make it user friendly, definitely. Um, and we had like so many iterations of it, so many different approaches to it. So I don't remember which ones we did choose, but definitely it's about being user friendly,
uh,
and
smart.
yeah, yeah, it's about limiting choice. It's about predictions.
All right. So also doing a lot of that AI even on the sort of auto layout part, and that is actually also interesting because a lot of the things that you mentioned, like the app deciding what color new rectangle should be, is a little bit similar to why people like AutoLayout, because that kind of gives them very strong constraints on things, so they don't mess up easily. They can just enter some numbers and it aligns boxes, with proper spacing and everything. So in a way, if this could be done automatically at some point, that would also be pretty cool. So like, let's say you draw 5 icons next to each other and it understands that this is a tab bar and kind of asks you if you want it to be spaced perfectly without you clicking on some boxes and just kind of entering numbers. Okay, this is really cool, because auto layout is, for some reason, I don't really get it, because I'm not a big fan of that Figma feature myself, and for various reasons, mostly optical alignment, which sometimes can be fixed with some things. But a lot of people ask for this, so I really had to ask about this as well. But I do have another question this time. Let's jump into like a different subject category, because on your website you mentioned that there will be paid plans in Lunacy in the future. There's nothing really more about them on the website, but does it mean that you're going to like heavily limit the free plan like Figma does, or is there like going to be a different feature set? So what's going to be the difference for, let's say, a typical user, especially I'm asking on behalf of people from emerging markets that simply don't have the cash to pay for a monthly service? So what would they get in the free version of Lunacy, and how would they be constrained?
Uh, it would be generous freemium, and we wouldn't be taking features from people, but we would be adding something. But normally it's linked to heavy resource heavy features. So AI is heavy, servers are expensive. The last one costs $68,000 we purchased. So everything AI. I mean, upscaling, removing backgrounds, maybe. I mean, heavy bitmap operations.
Yeah,
Um,
that's understandable, because that requires that server infrastructure and that processing
yeah.
power. But would that be like completely limited, or would it be more like people can buy some like small plans to just kind of have a little bit of that?
Uh, we'll see. We will see. But I mean, neither Figma nor I mean others don't have it at all.
Yeah.
The on some there would be some freemium on assets. So we sell assets. We finance Figma with assets. So it would be like larger versions of photos, illustrations, and icons would be. And there would be some cloud. Um, I mean, heavy use of cloud would be behind the paywall. But what would be free is you can use anything. Editing would be free forever, and local files would be free forever. Um, Light use of the cloud would be free forever. So personal use would be free forever, and local files will be free forever. Also, it would be open platform.
And does it kind of include collaboration, like the basic collaboration? So like a couple people accessing the same cloud files? Because Figma famously did a limit on that, so you can have that many
Mhm.
files and projects.
Look, we're different with Figma. Um, I in a way that Figma is not independent. We are. Um, so we pay our bills already. Um,
Okay, but by not independent, you, of course, right now with Adobe, that's pretty obvious. But do you mean like even before Adobe being like heavily reliant on investor money, and in some
yeah,
investors
yeah,
essentially
totally.
pushing them?
Yeah, yeah, right. Yeah, if you take venture capital, you should think about the exit strategy, and you should think about the next round. You should think about the next round, about the valuations, about the metrics, and about the exit strategy. So when you are popular, you're already so diluted, so you don't take your decisions. You're not free to take your decisions. With Icon Z, we don't have any venture capital and we are independent. So I can tell you, like, for promise you forever that we will be like, uh, I mean, that would be pretty empty. But what I can tell is that we are independent and we rely on our customers. So I don't know if you are a customer, if you are a subscriber. I'm your subscriber. So
Well, we are a paying subscriber to Icons 8,
uh,
uh,
thank you.
to the
So
library, and we've been using some of your products in like a lot of our stuff. So we are. I think we're mutual subscribers here.
yeah. So we depend on each other and we serve each other. So we don't have any suited up guy with a tie who tells us what to do and how to squeeze more money out of each other. And that will guide our decisions in the future. Um, in this way,
It's
we.
not something that you can say will never happen, because if somebody walks in with 20 billion in a suitcase, then obviously it's going to be a different conversation. But being independent, I think, is something that is quite important, and this is I think, a good strategy, at least for the users, at least for the initial users, that they won't be bothered by thinking, okay, what are they gonna limit in the next, let's say, half a year or something? Like, what are gonna be the limits there? What's gonna change for the worse? What's gonna, like, how much less stuff we're gonna be having now? So basically, what you're saying is that the free version is likely going to be mostly limited with the sort of heavy and intensive things, but for regular work, if you just want to design some apps with a couple of friends and leave some feedback and use the cloud that
Yeah,
way,
yeah, 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 yeah,
likely going to be
yeah,
free.
yeah, 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 totally. Also, I would argue about billions. I used to refuse money for 20 years. I mean, I wasn't offering 20 billions and probably won't be offered anytime, but I used to refuse many millions for, I mean, on multiple occasions. I don't know, 10 times. I used to refuse venture capital on multiple occasions. I get probably from one to several calls from venture capitalists a month. So I don't underestimate me.
Yeah, well, that's something I think that we kind of also have in common, because some time ago somebody wanted to buy our company as well, and I was
Yeah.
kind of, I didn't quit working at an agency to now have a boss. That's kind of like really silly. Well, that's good to know. That's definitely good to know for the designers, that you plan, at least for now, to stay independent and to have a functional working version, and with some potential power features being the paid elements. But when it comes to cloud, this is something that's also is kind of gaining in popularity right now with some of the ideas that Penpot had. Are you ever considering self-deployment of some of the cloud infrastructure? So some secretive companies, for example, could self-deploy the servers and not store anything on your servers, but instead kind of have it, on their own secure environments. And also, that's kind of less responsibility for you as well, because if somebody hacks them, it's their fault, likely.
Yeah. So we don't have this installation, but it's possible. So are we delayed the cloud feature because we tuned this architecture heavily to be really frugal, to be really lean. Um, I think what happened with Figma, they push everything to the cloud. So they wanted it because they wanted to release it fast and they wanted to look you into the cloud. What happened that they have huge Amazon bills, AWS bills, and they need to recruit new users to pay these bills. So it's a little bit like a pyramid. They need
Yeah,
to recruit new users to keep feeding AWS. What we did is create really lean infrastructure. First, our default options are local files, and second, our cloud format is really incremental and really compressed, and we store uh, very data really economically. And we don't use AWS. We use like servers, normal servers, which are cheaper. And we deploy the servers all over the world. So we have several installations on major continents, and soon we have installations on, I mean, everywhere in Africa and South America, everywhere. And also because it's I mean, mm, economical, it could be deployed on any hardware. We could actually make it deployable inside a company as well.
okay, because that is probably not really for the users, but some companies, especially like secretive ones, I've heard rumors that some companies don't use Figma because of them being, all in the same place and on Amazon, and basically that it's not really that safe if they don't have full control of where that cloud is. So that's definitely something for potential corporate clients in the future. But at the same time, it could be something worth doing for education as well, where uh, courses, boot camps, universities, classes of any kind, either online or offline, could host their learning cloud and kind of operate with those students like then completely free, without any extra costs, and then just kind of teach the new generations of designers. I'm looking at it, as I always try to do, from the perspective of how we can educate more and more people around the world, especially in countries that basically many people can't afford, a $10 a month license of any tool, no matter what it does and how powerful it is. So that self deployment is, I think, a question that I really wanted to know a little bit more about, because that gives a lot of potential to have complete freedom in learning. So there's no constraints, no boundaries. You can just you can even sponsor an instance. Let's say that a company wants to sponsor some countries schools, design schools, and just kind of buys them servers and instances of the software, so then they can teach people without any extra costs whatsoever.
I
So
think
this is
it's a great idea.
I kind of went a little bit, um, forward with my thinking here. But like generally, the idea of self-deployment is not just for corporations. It can be helpful to those that might need those features, but also knowing that as you said, you don't really plan to limit typical design features in the free version. But that's kind of gonna work as well for most of those people.
I think
Uh,
it's a great idea, especially like in China. It's difficult to host a server in China. If somebody sponsors an installation for us in China, that would be great. We have a large user base over there. Figma is slow in China because it's online. So downloadable Lunacy is really popular over there. And cloud would be a little bit slow because we host in Japan and Hong Kong. We use only near China. If somebody, Chinese university or some company sponsors cloud installation inside China, that would be great.
okay, and then potentially, of course, there's some other places as well that are worth exploring for that, because there is this whole new emerging market. I talked about it many times before. A lot of creative
We
designers
do.
from
We
Africa,
do. We
especially from
do. We purchased a server in Africa. We don't limit ourselves with developed markets with where people pay money. We do buy a server in India. India is huge user base. It's lots of traffic. It's not so much a paying user base, but we do buy servers there. Same in Africa. It's actually expensive infrastructure with smaller revenue per customer, but we do that. Uh, we
Yeah, because I
actually do
think
that.
the approach here that many like could kind of make a mental shortcut to it, that why bother when the people there can't afford to give you money back, so why should you do it? But in reality, the more people there learn design, the better they get, the better jobs they get, the better companies they create. And at some point, if we just let them, have the tools and learn, they're gonna pay you back like in multiple times, because they're all gonna probably, if they like the tool and if it helped them on the career journey, then obviously when they do get the money eventually, because it's only a matter of time if you have talent, then they're not going to go with the free version forever. So it's more of like a possibility for people who don't have the money right now, but they're willing to learn, they show potential, they show talent, to kind of help them out on this journey. So this is really especially important to me, because I have many friends in Nigeria, and I'm seeing that basically the currency exchanges are really tough on them to buy licenses for software and stuff like that. But still, they're growing, and Nigeria is having their first, I think, 8 or 9 unicorn companies right now. So it's definitely a market to look at, not just kind of like a potentially, let's give everything there for free, but potentially a huge market that in a few years growth will be a huge revenue market as well.
Totally.
Okay, so let's see what we have here. Okay, so another question that I had is whether you did consider a web version of Lunacy next to the native apps.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, we have already a prototype, so it's a matter of time. Uh, we have already a working copy in the browser, and it's uh, like a number of issues to fix. So how it's opened the files, how it like everything like working with a file system. But we'll release it initially. It's a matter of priority.
Okay, so there will be an option to either go with the native apps or to, because I also think that you kind of said that you don't use Electron wrappers like some people pretend that their app is native, whether well, in reality, it's really not. It's just kind of a website in a wrapper. Uh, but having that option to be on the web is kind of liberating, because you're not confined to just your machine. You can work on somebody
Yeah,
else, or quickly log in, do some tweaks, and log out. And I actually had this problem once or twice on vacation, where I didn't bring my computer with me, and there was something to change, so I had to kind of log in and then use the web version of Figma to make adjustments to a project, because that was the only way I could do it on like the hotel computer, for example. So this is something that is, well, I don't really think that web-based, precisely like completely web-based tools are the future of design. At least not when they don't have any caching and kind of, PWA features. But luckily, a lot of them are going in this direction right now as well. But there is like having the option to either go native or to have the web, is always good. Okay, and are you planning any like prototyping preview apps, kind of like Sketch has the mirror app?
so HTML is not enough, right?
Well, that really depends, because many people can't really easily like open HTML on their phones. So that could be like a wrapper for an HTML prototype. But I
Like they
find
can't open HTML on their phones.
no, I mean not open in like the fully sort of native emulating way, because you always have some sort of browser Chrome added, some like additional things that shouldn't really be there. It should be like a full screen experience, completely full screen. And if you just tap on something by accident, it shouldn't bring back the browser.
Shouldn't be difficult to do. A wrapper. So it should be basically a wrapper for a browser that removes everything like
Yeah, something like this. I think that's like one of the main things for which I like the Sketch Cloud, the Sketch Mirror app, is that first of all you can preview on the phone as you work, but that's kind of a little bit more difficult. You have your phone here, next to the screen, and you're working on an app, and then you
Mhm.
see how it looks like on the phone right away. But that's one thing. But then if you're doing any kind of user testing and prototyping and anything like that, uh, that's kind of like a lot easier for you than just use HTML in the browser for
And
potential
it
like
could also refresh automatically
yeah.
when you publish a prototype. It could listen to the server and its updates. It could refresh. I think it's a great idea, actually. I think there's Axure. Do you know Axure?
Yeah, I
Yeah,
remember this from even before Sketch.
yeah. So they rely on browser for previewing prototypes, and you should always refresh it, or it opens a new browser window. It's quite annoying. So we could create an app. It's easy, and we already have iOS apps. We have expertise. We have developers who know how to develop these apps. I think it's a great idea. I took a notepad and made notes. Thank you.
All right. Yeah, well, the idea comes from basically something that leads to my next question is that, of course, designing is a big part of using a design tool, obviously, but there is this big disconnect between the designers and researchers and how they use the tools. Because right now, if you want to like really test a prototype, you need to kind of usually kind of self-deploy it or code it yourself and add some tools like Hotjar to it and something like that next to it. And it's kind of detached from the actual design files. Even if you make a clickable prototype in Figma or in Sketch, um, it doesn't come with the tools that are easy to use to test it on people, to do some quick usability studies and things like that. They're often done via Zoom and screen sharing or something, or what would you click on this screen or questions like that, instead of kind of giving people the prototype that works and allowing them to maybe even use plugins or external tool elements, like, I don't know, making a plugin for Hotjar to see where they click or how far they scroll and things like that. So kind of my question is that are you considering going beyond design a little bit towards user testing in any way?
First of all, we do user testing ourselves. I do user testing myself. The problem, you mean fully automated user testing, like usertesting.com, when you just give away and you receive a recording and watch after that?
No,
No.
not necessarily. Like if you can create a prototype in a design tool and you have your own group of users, then you share it to those users, but then let's say it tracks some of their actions, response times, how fast they click the button, additional features like that. Not something, because I understand that's a lot of work and a lot of thinking as well, but more towards like, are you even considering helping researchers a little bit also? Because
Mm.
right now the problem is that when you're doing user testing, you finish work in a design tool and then it has to be taken out of the design tool for testing, usually using a couple of different things, not often very well connected together. And maybe that is a
Mhm.
potential as well to kind of think about the next step. Not just create a prototype that you can click through and show on a meeting, but instead create a prototype that you can do some basic research on. Not like fully, full-fledged, super awesome usability studies, but just anything that you can take out of that prototype. Not just kind of show it, but also provide the value to the researchers so they could be also potential users of the design tool.
So we do some basic prototyping, so you can link the artboards between. So right now, what I would do with Lunacy, I would create a prototype. I would link as many areas as possible. I would probably create as many clickable areas as possible. I would probably link the rest of the screen somewhere so they don't start clicking in the empty spaces without anything happening. So, and then I will use something like still use something as Zoom to create to perform actual usability testing. What could be done there? You mean some kind of to replace Zoom with native
No, not necessarily replace
ability?
not necessarily replace video calling, but more like tracking some of the user behavior. So you could still, take the prototype onto a call, but next to what you observe, you could have some statistical data of
Mm,
what they clicked in what order, or even their misclicks. So they tapped on something that doesn't work. It's not a button, and you didn't notice that on the Zoom call, but they did.
mm,
That kind of
mm,
um, that feature could give you data on what happened. So they try to tap this thing, which is a category indicator and not a button. It doesn't work. And kind of you get a report of like what happened, how long did they spend on each screen, and kind of like basic
mm,
statistics, just to kind of
mm,
supplement, because obviously you have to do the usability studies during either a live meeting with somebody or on a Zoom call or anything else that you're using. But maybe there's some way to add to that with like features that can be coming from stats and analysis.
mm. Do you use something like Silverback? Do you know a software called Silverback or TechSmith?
No.
I use something like that. They're highly specialized. They allow you to perform usability testing. So they like during usability testing, you you like watch people doing something, and then you make some notes. Like here is he made some error, and you can create some notes, and then you can create a recording with all the errors user created, and then you kind of prepare a report for that. So we used to use these tools for our usability studies, and then we stopped using that and started using the notes in the notepad, and then compiling them in some free form review in Google Docs. Um, I think it's interesting to rethink the whole process because everybody's thinking about handoff uh, to developers, but nobody's thinking about usability research. I think usability research is really uncapped. Usability research tools are really sad ones. You take any usability type of usability research, like card sorting, whatever, and it's a graveyard of abandoned tools.
Yeah, and also
Uh,
surprisingly, a lot of these like UX research tools have pretty bad UX, which is interesting that they never tested their own tools on people or something. I
Hmm.
don't know, but yeah, that is true. So that's why I asked about this, because I have a couple of questions about some potential, future directions, and that's why I asked.
Mm,
But then another question that I have is whether you plan to implement any, let's say, more complex prototyping objects. And what I mean is like form fields that when playing the prototype you can actually write into. Of course, it doesn't do anything, but you have the ability to enter text.
Mhm. It's something also something like Axure, and not at the moment, honestly.
Okay.
I'm a prototyping myself person myself, so I'm at the initial stage of design. I'm a designer myself, UX designer, but and I specialize in the initial stage of design. I do prototyping, and this is my area of expertise. I think we should mm, facilitate designers like myself to create the initial prototypes where we could drag the inputs on the screen uh, without thinking about drawing the inputs. So they should drag the inputs and they should look like inputs without thinking like it's a rectangle with rounded colors and it should be like, I don't know, pseudo 3D or not, without thinking a lot of the stuff. But I don't think we should think about it being interactive at this stage. Um, it's still the area of prototyping, specialized prototyping tools. My favorite one is actually Whimsical. It doesn't allow. I don't know. Are they interactive the prototypes? Probably so. Yeah, my favorite one is Whimsical. So I highly recommend Whimsical for that. Uh, it's a great tool, but we don't cover their territory not yet.
Okay, so then the next, and I think the last kind of feature set that I wanted to talk about, which also has proven to be quite popular recently, is animation in form of just state A to state B. So not like fully timeline animation, but kind of like smart animate, where you can use that to actually create some pretty sophisticated animations that don't have to be just, a window moving to the top or the bottom of the screen. They can be quite complex with just that simple point A, point B. Let's interpolate what's going on between those 2 points. So anything like that coming to Lunacy?
And of principle, uh,
Well, maybe not as far as principle. More like smart animate, which
mm,
Figma does, which is just kind of one drop down choice. There's not really a lot you can do with that besides changing the easing curves and the time.
probably. Yeah, probably. And this is the first category of features we are forced to do. So people come in like Figma does feature A. Why don't you do that? If you implement this feature, we will switch immediately. So we have lots of these requests. We have a community of people voting for these features, and initially we implement this. So I think we have no choice but to implement these features initially. So probably we will do that. I won't promise about this fall. This fall not this winter, I don't know, but probably we will cover all this functionality within half a year or a year. Yeah,
All right, that's good to know because there's a lot of people that are saying that, okay, I'm almost ready to switch, but there's like this, and that still missing. And I understand that you can't really do features for everybody, obviously, and it's probably not really even the goal to just make a Figma copy anyway. But there are definitely features that are more useful than others to a larger group of people. So once that kind of gets in, it's a lot easier for people to consider switching.
I hate that. I mean, I hate it. It's like comparing to your ex when somebody compares you to your ex. Uh,
Yeah.
why don't you do that? Why don't you do that? I hate it. I want something like new revolutionary, and people drag you back to create some features that somebody already implemented. It's so boring, but you have to do that.
Yeah, sometimes you have to, like, you can build on top of that, and as I mentioned, that there are a lot of cool features in Lunacy that other tools don't have, especially with all like the built-in AI tools that you don't need plugins for. But there is like a lot more. I talked about it in one of the videos before. That I really applaud the creativity here. But obviously, creativity is one thing, but at the same time, there are things that people are kind of can't live without on like the basic level. So as I understand that you have a list of these features, people can vote on them. So likely some sort of smart animate, auto layout, and a couple of other biggies are going to be high on that list. But then the next question is whether um, first of all, Figma Import, which is something that many people are asking about because Figma's famous for having a closed format that's pretty difficult to decode well, and even the tools that do it, like Convertify and others, don't do it like perfectly, completely. And I tried some complex layouts, even just a single artboard, and it messes up many things. So when you have huge projects, like I used to have a project with 1800 screens for multiple devices, and of course taking 1800 screens and converting them from Figma to a different tool, and then every screen breaks somewhere even with a small issue, then it's going to be a lot of work to bring it to be normal again, to be workable. So do you have a plan of like a working Figma import that people can easily switch?
It's almost done. We're releasing it within weeks.
Okay, and is it like future proof in terms of Adobe decides to make it difficult for people to switch?
We used to hack things. Uh, it's we used to hack sketch format even before it was open, and we still open all sketch files from sketchupsources.com. Also, we decompile the Figma format, and we can manage that.
All right, that's good to know because that's a big fear of people. They've put in years of work into this one design tool, and then they end up wanting to switch, and then like, okay, what am I going to do with all those files? Should I recreate them over again, or is there a way to kind of move it over? And that fear is especially big when Adobe comes into play, because they can try to basically block that export completely however they can. But obviously, that was the same problem with the PSD format years ago that I remember. Also, that for years, many other apps couldn't open Photoshop files, and they also hacked them eventually and made them to be opened and even saved at
They
one point.
they make it intentionally hard.
Yeah.
So people who work with PSD files, including our team, they hate it. Every time they learn how it works, they discover three other ways to do the same thing within the same file.
Yeah, so
But
like
this
unlocking
is also
into an ecosystem that you really have to be a part of. Otherwise, you'll be missing out on many things.
yeah.
Okay,
No,
so
but it's also the challenge we are willing to accept. It's also the opportunity to shine. And a sketch format, we also used to work with it. It's there is like when you start supporting the format, there is um, a bug valley where you have months and years of another case where this text is in a single line here, and when you open it, it switches to two lines, and people report that. And we used to debug sketch format for years. And initially, it's really bad, and better, better, better. And now Lunacy opens sketch files just perfectly. With Figma format, uh, we have the advantage of all other tools which used to polish. to resolve some problems before us. So we debug it on top of that, and so we have the shorter path of debugging it.
But would you say that the Figma format is more complex than the Sketch format? Like, kind of comparing the difficulty to decode it. So, like, is it kind
Yeah,
of more difficult to do anything else with it than Sketch
yeah,
format?
yeah. Figma format, yeah, it's difficult. So they are the same as old Sketch format. So old Sketch, they dump Objective C, I think, code to the disk, and that's it. Then they created an open format, which is a JSON file, which is easy. We handle both. With Figma, they dump the, I think, C++ code, and it's just like old Sketch format. It's hard.
All right. So it is possible that it was created like that, sort of with the potential of locking people in mind from the start,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, totally. Yeah.
Okay, so you said you're using Sketch format for a lot of things as well, but does it mean that the Sketch format is also like your main format, or are you planning your own format as well?
It's our main format. We don't plan our own format, but it's also limiting us because we can support some of the features that Figma supports and we want to support. And we are planning to extend it. So we we are planning to make an option to make files either fully compatible with Sketch or be not compatible with Sketch. Not fully compatible with Sketch, but support some advanced features. For example, artboard, nested artboards. When you create artboard in the artboard, in Figma you can do that, in Sketch you can't. So we should, when we import Figma right now, we should kind of interpret it in some way. We should transform, we have to transform these artboards into the groups. If we step away from full compatibility with Sketch, we could support artboards and artboards as it should be.
Okay, but then if it goes back to Sketch, would it basically turn them to groups when you open a file in Sketch, or would it be kind of like a mess?
So right now, it would be group. If we step when we create an option of full compatibility or not, it depends on the option. If you support Sketch, it will be a group. If it if you make non-compatible file, probably it would disappear. I don't know, but it should be some unpredictable
But if it's
error.
not like a major element, then you should still be able to use that file within Sketch just with some missing elements, possibly, but
Mm,
not like completely broken and destroyed,
no, no.
right? And are you talking with the Sketch team in any way since you're using a format that they helped create, or is there like no collaboration whatsoever?
It's a latter.
Okay, but aren't they open to possibly, I don't know, exploring having a unified format with between multiple tools or something like that, or not really?
Not much. We have they have a problem. The program with Friends of Sketch is called Friend of Sketch, but we have access to beta releases, with early releases, but we don't have any influence on their policy, on their features, on whatever. Unfortunately.
All right, but I understand that this is potentially something that it might happen like one day, since you'll be sharing the same format in the future.
Could be great to have a consortium. It could be great if we could have maybe some companies that work in this area. We have a say in which features to support in the futures versions of the format to mutually develop it, but that's not something we have now.
Okay, well, I'm hoping that something like this could happen in the future, because obviously competition spawns innovation, but at the same time, some forms of collaboration are also really good for the industry. So I think that the last question that I have is that, do you have any features that I haven't asked about that you're particularly excited about, that you're planning to release soon, that could be exciting for designers as well? So like anything cool coming.
It's a great question. We have placeholder text feature. Instead, when you uh, start typing text, instead of type something, we place a placeholder text, and that depends on the size of the text box you've placed. So if you've placed something really small, it could be price, or something larger, it could be name or a job title, and then you could drag and it replaces with something larger paragraph of text.
Got
So
it.
you can actually create the interfaces really fast. And when you let it be, for example, a name, you can copy it, and instead of copying the same name, it copies
Yeah, that's
different name.
really cool. And this is one of the reasons that I'm a big fan of your approach to everything. Like, not kind of always just copying feature for feature, but trying to figure out like what could be a next logical step for designers. And many of these features are exactly that. That's why I really love hearing about that. This is an awesome conversation. Thank you for that. So basically. Let's say that we covered a lot of ground here, uh, but let maybe like as closing, would you say that you kind of are increasing efforts with Lunacy? I know I asked this a little bit before, but maybe right now, based on the context of what we talked about, will you be kind of, uh, let's say, trying to use the Adobe Figma uh, issue that arose with many designers to, I know, push for more features into the app, more developers, faster growth cycles, and basically trying to grab as much of the market share when it's a little bit open for the grabs right now, as you can? Or are you just going to continue at the pace that you kind of worked on before? So is it going to be sped up much faster, or is it just going to be, we're growing the company as we have been?
Uh, it definitely rises the spirits when you have more mentions in Twitter, when you have more people considering you and making YouTube reviews and store reviews. And we already kept expanding it. So um, the team kept expanding, and also we our strategy is to keep the team small and fast. So we should keep growing it organically.
All right.
It's
So avoiding like
yeah,
a corporate bloat, because that could make you dependent on external funding.
yeah. It's also I mean growing it like I mean hiring lots of developers and designers wouldn't speed up the development. I mean, could slow down the development. Actually,
Yeah.
look at Sketch. So they they got 20 million. They tried to create web version and it didn't work. Somehow I don't know what happened, but they they failed to create a web version. It's still a handoff tool. Um,
Yeah, sometimes throwing more developers at a problem actually just makes it a bigger problem. So I understand that. Also, that can create bloat. Okay, because I'm asking also because of like there were some in my community, many people, of course, jumped into to try Lunacy, and they said that they liked the tool a lot, but they encountered a lot of bugs compared
really?
to what they were used to. But of course, they're kind of used to Figma, which had a lot of bugs in the beginning, but not many people remember that still. So is there like let's say faster turnaround time for some of the bug fixes?
When was that?
I think like a month ago or maybe 2 months ago. But there weren't like experience breaking bugs, just kind of little things that kind of that they found a little bit confusing or annoying why something happens like that. That might well be fixed by now. Just kind of wanted to know like how fast are you addressing bugs basically?
We have 5 QA engineers, and they're generating hundreds of bugs bugs per sprint. So we have uh, the goal this fall to decrease the number of current bugs from 400 to 100. It means they open hundreds of bugs each 2 weeks, and the average number of open bugs should be down from 400 to 100.
Okay, that is probably completely answers the question because I know that with many designers that when they jump into a new tool and they find an even very small bug, they can be discouraged of continuing because they think that oh that's probably going to be fixed next year or something. But if you have this fast approach, then I think that many people watching should be aware of that and not be too stressed because likely with the next version the most of the problems that they had if any are going to be fixed. So this is more of like this kind of abundance that we kind of got used to. We have so many different tools and we got used to something, then we jump into something that's quite new on the market, or let's say new in sort of the growing market right now, and they expect a tool done independently by a small team to have everything completely ironed out in the first versions, and obviously that's not always the case. But if a tool is promising and also shows that there are fast turnaround times in bug fixing, then that should kind of alleviate the problem completely for people, and they should trust it more, knowing that yes, we are aware of problems and we're fixing them, and just going forward to make it better.
I appreciate what you said. I appreciate your trust, and I'm sorry for the problems you had. We are also moving to the open to the transparency here. So we are about to publish the list of the issues we are fixing right now, and to the list of features we're working right now. So we have our Jira backlog, and we are about to publish it on our website. So the community could track exactly if the issue is we are aware of this issue, and when exactly it would be fixed.
Okay, but obviously people can log into your community places and request features or report bugs if they want to, right?
Yeah, they we have a forum for bugs, and we have a community for voting for features where they vote for features.
Okay, perfect. So I'm gonna link those, of course, in the description of the video. And yeah, that's been great. I really thank you for taking the time and also hearing this approach. This is a very close to my heart approach that you're having with like not just copying, but trying to like really innovate. And a lot of the things that I heard today, I really love hearing about a different approach, not kind of making Figma 2.0, but well, rather than that, kind of making something unique and exploring. Even if something is not really a great idea, let's try it and see how it works. But let's try a lot of these ideas to kind of see how we can push the industry forward. So when we draw a new rectangle, it's not always going to be the same boring gray. So thank you very much for joining today. And I will be talking about Lunacy obviously a lot more this year. So really excited for what's cooking there.
Thank you, Mike, for the opportunity, and thank you for all the warm words. I'm really touched.
And that's it for today. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and as always, have a beautiful day.